Beneath the earth, there's a place that no human being has entered in over 2,000 years. Not an archaeologist, not a scientist, not even a grave robber. This place is so dangerous that if its door were opened today, everything inside could be destroyed within seconds. And the most astonishing part is that just outside this place, standing above ground, is an entire army, not made of flesh, but of clay, shaped to look astonishingly real, built for a single purpose. That purpose is protection. But protection of what? And what exactly lies inside, something that scientists already know about, yet still refuse to look at directly? This is the story of China's first emperor, of his extreme fear of death, and of a secret buried beneath the ground, one that modern science is slowly beginning to uncover piece by piece. Let's start this story from the very beginning. The year is somewhere in the 3rd century BCE, roughly 2,200 years ago. China, at that time, was not a single nation. It was divided into several smaller warring states, locked in conflict with one another for centuries. Among these states was one called Qin, and this state had a young ruler named Ying Zheng. He became king of his small state at the age of just 13. But his destiny was not to rule over a small kingdom alone. Over the next 40 years, he conquered every rival state, and for the first time in history, united all of China under a single banner. This is how he earned the title Qin Shi Huang, meaning the first emperor of Qin. It is from his name that the modern word China is believed to originate. But Qin Shi Huang was not simply a conqueror. He was a man haunted constantly by the fear of death. He wanted to live forever. Driven by this fear, he ordered the physicians and alchemists of his court to prepare elixirs and medicines that could grant him eternal life. These alchemists gave him potions containing mercury, believing at the time that mercury was a magical, life-giving substance. The reality was the exact opposite. Mercury is a poison, and years of consuming it slowly deteriorated the emperor's health. Eventually, at the age of 49, he died from the very poison he had been taking in his desperate pursuit of immortality, killed by the very thing he believed would save him from death. But Qin Shi Huang's ambitions did not stop at trying to stay alive. He decided that if eternal life in this world was not possible, then, at the very least, his grandeur and legacy should remain eternal even after death. With this belief, construction on his tomb began the very moment he ascended the throne at the age of 13. This project continued for nearly 40 years, and it was completed right around the time of his death. Over 700,000 laborers worked on this single project, a number that was almost unimaginable for that era. This tomb was built near the city of Xi'an, in an area known as Mount Li, and the most famous part of this entire tomb complex is what the world today knows as the Terracotta Army. In 1974, a group of farmers near Xi'an were digging a well simply looking for water, but beneath the ground they found something else entirely, a clay figure, which they initially mistook for a statue of Buddha. As the digging continued, however, it became clear this was not a religious object at all. It was the statue of a soldier, life-sized, complete with a full uniform and weapons. And this was not the only one. As the excavation continued, thousands more of these figures began to emerge from the earth. According to research conducted so far, there are roughly 8,000 clay soldier figures at this site. Each figure stands in its designated position, as though an entire real army were assembled and ready for battle. There are infantry soldiers, cavalry archers, war chariots, and horses, all made of clay, yet crafted with such skill that no two faces are exactly alike. One soldier has a different expression, another has a different style of beard, another has a distinct design on his uniform. This was not mass production. Each figure was individually carved, as if the artists wanted every single soldier to have his own unique identity. And these weren't just soldiers. Later excavations also uncovered figures of court officials, of strongmen, and even of musicians. In other words, this wasn't merely an army. It was a miniature reflection of Qin Shi Huang's entire world, meant to accompany him even after death. It was the belief of that era that whatever a person used in life, they would need again in the afterlife. This is why Qin Shi Huang didn't just build himself a tomb, he built an entire underground city, an army to protect him, officials to serve him, and musicians to entertain him. But here a question naturally arises. If this was such a massive and remarkable project, why is there so little historical record of it? The truth is that after Qin Shi Huang's death, his dynasty did not survive for very long. Within just a few years, his rule collapsed, and a new dynasty took power. It's possible that the new rulers deliberately downplayed the mention of this tomb, or perhaps, over time, it simply faded from public memory. Whatever the reason, the fact remains that something this massive stayed buried and forgotten for centuries, until a farmer's attempt to dig a well accidentally brought it back into the world. Before we move toward the mystery hidden inside the tomb, let's take a closer look at the complex above ground, because what exists there is nothing short of remarkable in itself. When archaeologists began excavating this area, they didn't find just one pit. They found 4 separate pits, dug roughly 7 meters below the surface. The first and largest pit contains the greatest concentration of soldiers, arranged in row after row, as if an actual army were standing ready to march. The second pit was designed for cavalry units and archers, containing chariots, horses, and crossbowmen. The third pit is smaller, but contains figures believed to represent military commanders, likely representing the officers who would have led this entire army. And the fourth pit was found completely empty. Some historians believe Qin Shi Huang's death came too suddenly for this section to ever be completed. Another remarkable aspect of this army is the method used to create it. These figures were not made from a single mold. Craftsmen first built and fired the basic structure of each body, and then hand-carved every single face individually. One soldier has wide eyes, another has a furrowed brow, another has a distinctively curled mustache. It's believed that these faces may have been modeled after real soldiers of that era, so that each warrior would carry his own identity even in death. Similarly, each figure was given real weapons to hold: swords, bows, spears, many of which are still sharp today, despite more than 2,000 years having passed. This is proof of just how advanced the craftsmanship and metallurgy of that era truly was. During this same excavation, another astonishing discovery was made: 2 bronze chariots, referred to as the bronze chariots. These chariots are about half life-size, but their detail is extraordinarily fine. Even the reins on the horses are made from actual metal chains, and the chariot canopies are decorated with gold and silver work. These chariots were likely built for the emperor's spirit, so that he could travel through his empire even after death. In 2007, UNESCO designated this entire complex a World Heritage Site, and today the Terracotta Army is one of the most visited archaeological sites in the world. Millions of people travel to Xi'an every year just to see this army with their own eyes. But no matter how many visitors come here, none of them can get anywhere near the central tomb where the emperor himself is buried, because that section remains sealed, protected, and filled with danger to this day. Now, everything we've covered so far is only the first part of the story. The real secret, the real danger, and the thing scientists now know but still cannot touch, that still lies beneath the ground. Everything uncovered so far during excavation lies around the actual tomb, on the outside. The emperor's own body, his coffin, and all the treasures buried alongside him are located in a separate central chamber that has never been opened to this day. This central section is so large that to picture it, imagine an underground complex roughly 100 meters long and 75 meters wide. It is completely sealed shut, as if it were a time capsule, protected from air and light for over 2,000 years. The first reason is a matter of preservation. The fear that the moment the tomb is opened, everything inside will begin to deteriorate. This isn't mere speculation. There's already a living example of exactly this happening with the Terracotta Army itself. When the clay soldiers were first excavated, many of them still had colorful paint on their surfaces: red, blue, green, in a range of vivid colors. But as soon as these figures came into contact with air, their colors began to fade almost immediately. The lacquer coating beneath the paint began curling within about 15 seconds of exposure, and within just 4 minutes it would completely flake away. Colors that had remained preserved underground for thousands of years were lost forever in a matter of seconds. This was a hard lesson for archaeologists. If this much damage could occur despite such careful handling, opening the central tomb, where even more delicate and ancient artifacts likely remain, could be catastrophic. This is why most experts agree that until preservation and excavation technology advances enough to safely remove what's inside without damaging it, patience remains the wiser path. But this is only the first reason. The second reason is far more dangerous, and this is where ancient history and modern science intersect directly. Roughly 2,000 years ago, a Chinese historian named Sima Qian wrote a historical text shortly after Qin Shi Huang's death, called the Shiji. In this text, he described the construction of the tomb in detail. He wrote that when laborers dug down through 3 layers of groundwater, they poured bronze to build the outer coffin. But the most astonishing thing Sima Qian recorded was that the tomb also contained flowing rivers and seas, not made of water, but of mercury. According to his account, an entire mechanical system was built inside the tomb using mercury, designed to mimic the flow of China's great rivers and seas. For centuries, people considered this claim to be little more than a legend, an exaggeration written by a historian to glorify a dead emperor. But then, in 2020, a study published in the reputable science journal Nature tested the soil surrounding this tomb. Scientists found mercury levels far higher than normal. This finding suggests that Sima Qian's account may not have been pure fiction after all. There could be real truth behind it. Some estimates suggest the tomb could contain over 100 tons of mercury. Now think about what that actually means. Mercury is a substance that continuously produces vapor, even at ordinary room temperature, and this vapor is severely toxic to the human body. If this tomb truly contains such a massive quantity of mercury, opening it wouldn't just be an archaeological undertaking. It would become a direct threat to human life. Air that has remained sealed inside this space for thousands of years could release dangerous mercury vapor the instant anyone tried to enter. This is why it isn't just preservation at stake. There's a very real, immediate danger to life itself standing in the way of opening this tomb. And if we look further into Sima Qian's writings, he mentions even more astonishing details about what lies inside this tomb. According to his account, palaces were built within it, treasures were placed inside, and it's said that deadly traps were installed to protect the tomb, such as crossbows engineered to fire automatically if an unauthorized person entered. For centuries, these claims were dismissed as pure legend, but once the mercury claim was scientifically confirmed, archaeologists and scientists began reconsidering whether other details from Sima Qian's account might also hold some truth. Here we arrive at an intriguing twist. Huang, who poisoned himself with mercury in his lifelong pursuit of immortality, may now, in death, be protected by that very same substance. It seems that the thing that ended his life is the very thing that has kept his final resting place secure to this day, because no one dares to risk entering due to this extremely hazardous element. Now the question arises, if physically opening the tomb is so difficult and dangerous, how are scientists learning anything at all about what lies inside? This is where modern technology truly shows its potential. Archaeologists and scientists have begun working on non-invasive techniques that could allow them to form an image of what's inside without ever opening the tomb. One such method is called muon tomography. Muons are particles created when cosmic rays, radiation arriving from space, collide with Earth's atmosphere. These particles are powerful enough to pass through significant depths of Earth, but when they pass through denser materials, like metal or stone, their speed and quantity change in measurable ways. By recording these muons, much like an X-ray creates an image of the inside of the human body, scientists can build a rough map of underground structures. This means that without digging into the ground and without ever opening the tomb's entrance, it may be possible to determine the shape, size, and layout of the chambers hidden below, using nothing but cosmic rays. Although this method has not yet been fully applied to this specific tomb, it represents hope, a sign that scientists may, in the coming years, be able to gradually unravel this mystery without putting anyone at risk. Similarly, satellite imaging and ground-penetrating radar have already been used to estimate the underground structures surrounding the mausoleum. These methods have confirmed that this area is indeed a hermetically sealed, completely enclosed space, matching the very dimensions that Sima Qian recorded in his history 2,000 years ago. This fact alone is astonishing. A 2,000-year-old written account, long considered an exaggeration, is now being confirmed by modern technology. Now, let's step back and look at this entire story from a different angle. Huang was a man who unified all of China during his lifetime, who laid the foundations of the Great Wall of China, and who standardized writing systems, currency, and units of measurement across his empire. His rule was also marked by considerable severity. Those who opposed him were punished, and books that conflicted with his ideology were burned. He was a ruler determined to make his greatness permanent, and the greatest example of this determination is his own tomb. Just imagine. At the age of 13, when most children are still playing and growing up, Huang had already begun preparing for the world beyond his death. And for the next 40 years, over 700,000 laborers worked around the clock to build a place meant not for any living person, but for a dead emperor. This wasn't just a tomb, it was an entire world, complete with an army, officials, musicians, palaces, and, if Sima Qian's account is accurate, even a ceiling designed to mimic the night sky, decorated with pearls and gemstones, with rivers of mercury flowing below it. This vision is so immense that even today, when archaeologists discuss it, their voices carry both astonishment and a certain reverence. This isn't just an ancient tomb, it stands among the most ambitious projects in all of human history. But alongside this grandeur lies a strange irony. The man who spent his entire life chasing immortality is now so thoroughly sealed away in death that no one can even reach his body. His coffin, likely still surrounded by mercury vapor to this day, has become a strange reflection of the eternal life he once sought. Except this isn't life at all. It is a permanent, unreachable death. It's worth pausing here to understand just how unusual this level of documentation is for its time. Sima Qian wrote the Shiji roughly a century after Huang's death, during the following Han Dynasty, compiling records and oral accounts that had survived the turbulent collapse of the Qin Empire. Historians have long debated how much of his account was based on genuine court records, and how much was shaped by the political motivations of the dynasty that replaced Qin Shi Huang's own. A newly established ruling family often has reason to portray its predecessor as extravagant, tyrannical, or even monstrous, in order to justify its own rise to power. This is part of why, for so long, the more extraordinary details in Sima Qian's account, the rivers of mercury, the booby traps, the ceiling modeled after the night sky, were treated with skepticism. Yet the 2020 mercury findings shifted this conversation. When a 2,000-year-old text turns out to be accurate on a claim that could easily have been dismissed as poetic exaggeration, it forces historians to take the rest of the account far more seriously, even while acknowledging that not every detail can yet be verified. It also helps to place this project in context by comparing it to other undertakings of the ancient world. The pyramids of Giza, built roughly 2,000 years before Qin Shi Huang's reign, remain the most famous funerary structures in history, yet even they do not match the sheer scale of labor and secrecy involved in this Chinese mausoleum. Where the pyramids were built as visible monuments meant to be seen and admired, Qin Shi Huang's tomb was designed for the opposite purpose, to remain hidden, sealed, and untouched. Its true grandeur meant only for the emperor himself in the afterlife, not for public display. This difference in intention is part of what makes the Terracotta Army so unusual as a discovery. The soldiers were never meant to be seen by the living. They were arranged, in complete secrecy, for an audience of one. Now, if we return to the question of what scientists have actually uncovered, the answer is this. They have confirmed that a story long dismissed as mere legend is, in fact, fundamentally true. The tomb really does contain a massive quantity of mercury. The tomb really is the size and shape described in ancient texts. And this tomb really is dangerous enough that opening it isn't simply an archaeological decision. It becomes a matter of life and death. This is exactly why the Chinese government and archaeologists around the world have collectively agreed that until technology exists to open this tomb without causing any damage, it should not be touched at all. This decision isn't rooted in fear or blind superstition. It comes from pure scientific caution. Things that have remained preserved for 2,000 years, whether colors, metals, or wooden artifacts, would be lost forever the moment they came into contact with air. And once something like that is destroyed, there is no getting it back. This is why the Terracotta Army standing above ground isn't just an army. It is a message, a warning in a sense, still doing its job even thousands of years later. The purpose for which Qin Shi Huang built this army, to protect himself, to preserve his greatness, is still being fulfilled today. The only difference is that the soldiers guarding him now aren't made of clay, but of knowledge and caution. It's also worth noting that research at this site is far from finished. Even the areas already excavated, the 4 pits containing the soldiers, chariots, and horses, represent only a fraction of the entire necropolis. Archaeologists estimate that the full complex, including surrounding burial pits, stables, and administrative buildings, believed to have supported the workers and officials tied to this project, covers an area of many square kilometers. New smaller pits continue to be discovered periodically, each adding a little more detail to the picture of what this ancient capital of the dead actually looked like. Some of these smaller pits have revealed bronze waterfowl, acrobats, and other figures entirely separate from the military theme of the main army, suggesting that Qin Shi Huang's underground world was even more elaborate and varied than the soldiers alone would suggest. Chinese archaeological authorities have been notably conservative in their approach, choosing slow, methodical excavation over rapid discovery, precisely because of the lessons learned from the paint deterioration in the 1970s. Entire sections of the site are still deliberately left unexcavated, on the assumption that future generations of scientists, with far better tools than exist today, will be able to recover far more information with far less damage. This is a rare example in archaeology of a major, world-famous site being intentionally left partially unexplored, not due to lack of resources or curiosity, but as a long-term act of patience. And perhaps this is the most beautiful part of this entire story. An emperor who died 2,000 years ago wanted his greatness to last forever. Today, the whole world knows his name. His army continues to astonish visitors from every corner of the globe, and his secret, that mercury-filled, dangerous, unopened tomb, still lies beneath the earth, waiting for the day we might finally become capable enough to open it without causing harm. Until that day arrives, this secret will remain exactly as it is, suspended between time and danger, a story that Sima Qian wrote down centuries ago, and one that modern science is slowly proving true, piece by piece. And perhaps that is exactly why this story still fascinates us. As much today as it must have fascinated that farmer all those years ago, digging a well in his field and uncovering something that had remained hidden from human eyes for over 2,000 years.